Malcolm. I'm an architect and I'm on the board of Commonweal. I'm going to attempt a top-to-bottom overview of the whole housing issue because we are broken from top to bottom, from the very highest issue. So in terms of finance, blue is bad things, green will be upcoming solutions. We look at homes as a tax haven. They get tax breaks all around them. That's the reason why our children can't afford homes. We are hiding wealth in homes instead of taxing it properly. We need to adjust these things. That's the house I grew up in. We need to persuade my mum to move out by raising her tax band, all those sorts of things. But we need to produce places for her to go, sheltered places for her to go as well, which we don't at the moment. So we need to start taxing wealth instead of people's income. We need big things in place to help sort that. The National Investment Bank, which the Commonweal has been partly behind initiating, the money from that should cascade down into local authorities, into social housing, and that's social housing that I designed. We need to secondly look at the models, because the model that we think is the single orthodoxy for how to do housing is absolute shite. It's the Diddy Box model, or stacked up by the docks, the young bankers model. We need to diversify this private monopoly on housing that we think is there. And the idea that we can help the housing crisis by Help to Buy, by putting 20 billion in Britain into basically the pockets of the housing developers. The market very well just takes that out as profit. And there's Jeff Fairbairn got 75 million bonus at Persimmon last year. The weird thing is that up to the 1970s, private house builders did things really well. This is a really nice little courtyard development in Edinburgh with greens in the middle of them, cars tucked around the back, sociable. But house builders have forgotten to do that. They are subsidy junkies. They want more Help to Buy to run out the standard model. Bottom-up empowerment is how we want to diversify those models. There's John's wonderful development, and that is currently the best that the market can do. That is a celebrity, classicist designer producing absolute rubbish. We need the Johns of this world to be empowered. This is what I'm working with, community asset transfers on a 50-acre site in Morningside in Edinburgh, to get a home for my mum, basically, to use that sort of a capital receipt to buy out the NHS to do there. We also need to look to our existing resources better. Chris has talked about that in terms of retrofitting buildings. But Glasgow knocked down 6 beautiful sandstone tenement streets, not just tenements, to do the Commonwealth Games Village. In the countryside, you always see a beautiful old house mouldering left behind. It's got hundreds of years left in it, and then because there's VAT chargeable on doing it up and zero VAT for doing a piece of rubbish behind, it's an absolutely catastrophically stupid imbalance. I started a campaign for flat VAT across construction. You would think you want levers to help you repair buildings. It's absolutely the other way around. Empty Homes Initiative, we talked about 35,000 empty homes, but there's an equal number of retail spaces above shops that could be brought back into use. So if you want 100 homes, instead of building them for 120 grand in the green belt, 20 grand in the middle of town, we need to bring these back into use. Fourthly, planning and placemaking. The witlessness of the government's wish to make us just do the same rubbish, but with slightly more wiggly streets. And say we can't have cul-de-sacs. Cul-de-sacs are the smallest version of community I know. This is what the volume house builders call gob-ons. I kid you not. That sort of the pediments, the half timbering, all of that. And I'm told they told me we now do eco gob-ons proudly. So there's your eco gob-on. I said, do you call them greenies? What do you call them? What do we do instead of this witless, royalist urbanism with better gob-ons and neoclassical bits? We need to look at sunshine and utility to drive what we do. This is a little community I did in Fairmont Head in Edinburgh. All the living rooms, the gardens face south, get sunny, long views out, your living rooms upstairs. Here's a collective delivered I designed in Edinburgh. This is council housing. This is social housing. round a village green, all the gardens face south, living rooms to the front, tight community, cars tucked away, sunshine and gathering. There's nothing wrong with a village green. It's not a sort of couthy thing. Sunshine and sun. Lastly, materials. How we build houses is catastrophically poor. It's engineered flimsiness. All these things rot, so we need to wrap them in polythene to try and stop them rotting. Our kids get asthma. We put chemicals throughout our buildings, and that sort of timber, it needs to come from offshore. Use local timber, Scottish timber, cross-laminated timber. I've built nurseries in it. Kids' health is much greater, much better. Their concentration is higher. Breathing insulation, we need to look at natural, breathable, carbon locally sourced materials. It's not difficult. So if we're wanting an exemplar of what's gone wrong, there it is in front of you. And it's hard to find words to describe the enormity of what happened there. But aside from what everyone knows, that the cladding was not just inflammable, but incendiary, the insulation is made of cyanide. So most of the people who died in Grenfell died of cyanide poisoning. And I hate to say this, but the roof of the Glasgow School of Art had cyanide insulation inserted in it. So there's cyanide all around the Glasgow School of Art too. A simple plea, we need to don't wrap us in polybags, build with toxic, flammable materials, and just build with natural materials that sequester carbon and let buildings breathe. As a plea, you can't get more simple than that. Thank you.